Welcome to The Frontrunner Show with Carol Nichols.
Hello, I'm Carol Nichols, host of The Frontrunner Show, and today I'm pleased to have Carolyn Jenkins join us. Carolyn is leading from the front in sales strategy for the high-growth company Vericlave. And Carolyn is a graduate of the University of Texas at Austin with a degree in journalism. She also earned her MBA there. She is a software as a service technology leader with award-winning experiences leading companies in customer success, support, training, delivery, account management, HR, and operations. Carolyn has over 10 years of experience focused on rapid growth SaaS companies. So Carolyn also is the Chief Operating Officer for Vericlave, based in Austin, Texas,
Yes.
an innovative cybersecurity company with unique stealth technology which prevents cyber attacks and protects critical assets.
Yes.
So Carolyn, how long have you been interested in cyber and technology companies?
Well, first, thank you for having me here today. I'm excited to be here. I first got interested in technology in the 80s. I was very fortunate that I had a high school math teacher who carved out part of the curriculum to teach us basic computer programming, and I really enjoyed it. And when I went off to UT for my undergrad, even though my degree was not computer science or MIS, I continued to take programming classes for electives.
Okay.
I just kept my toe in it. And when I finished my MBA, I had the opportunity to work in technology staffing, and I devoured every online training class we had for object-oriented programming and database design so that I could speak more intelligently with my customers and with my candidates. And that led to me getting my first job in '97 in a technology startup, and I've stayed in technology ever since.
Fabulous. Well, as a technology expert and a technology junkie, what attracted you to Vericlave? How did you find Vericlave?
One of the investors in Vericlave and I met, and they said, we have a portfolio company that we think could use your consulting help. And I said, okay, I've got a couple of opportunities in front of me. Tell me about the company. And Jim didn't have to say much. He said they have this, paradigm shift for cybersecurity. Most cyber is about monitoring your network, detecting a breach, and then you have to respond to that breach, and then you have to mitigate the damage.
Okay.
Vericlave has this approach that is, let's hide the network so a hacker can't get to it to hack it. And I love the idea of the paradigm shift, so I accepted the opportunity to come to Vericlave, and have really enjoyed it, seeing what we can do in the market.
Yes. So that paradigm shift, it's about hiding from the enemy. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way the communication works is that it is a software and hardware combination, if you will. You need both of those things to deploy the solution. But it will only speak to the other devices that you've told it can speak with. So even if a hacker were to do a scan and ping the network won't respond. It won't even say, we're here. We're not going to let you in, but we're here. It just ignores them. So the hacker then just moves on to the next potential target. And the thing that also makes that very exciting is that quantum computing is coming right down,
Yes.
in the near future. But it won't matter. No matter how many quantum attacks come at it, it still won't respond. So it's already built to be quantum resistant.
I see. And deep hiding. I love that.
Yeah.
And hackers can't hack what they can't see.
That's exactly right.
Well, that uniqueness, I know, is what attracted Texas Women Ventures to make Vericlave a portfolio company. And I'm excited to be an investor in Vericlave and to see that Vericlave has such top talent as Carolyn Jenkins on the team.
Well, thank you.
So tell me, Carolyn, about your approach to operational excellence.
I am all about measurement. Measure everything. And if someone tells me it can't be measured, I will challenge them. We're going to find a way to measure it. We're going to make some assumptions and put a stake in the ground so we can do some testing very quickly, see if we're getting traction, adjust and move on. There's a lot of test and trial and error. But to do that, you need to have an idea of what the metrics are. And so I will challenge people. But then I want to leverage those metrics to ask people if they're going to accomplish what they've said they're going to do. It is way more informational to me to know if you're going to get there than where you are. I had a fantastic mentor in strategy attainment who taught me, for someone to tell me I'm 70% of the way done, is not nearly as informative as for that person to tell me, am I going to get the last 30% done? And so it's really important that even though we have metrics, we're not looking at just where you are today, but the questions, are you going to get there? And then if the answer is no, you can ask about the blockers, which then feeds my leadership style because I'm a servant leader. And it lets me say, if there's a blocker, how can I help? And how can the teammates help?
A servant leader who's also focused on execution.
Yes.
If you don't complete the task,
Yes.
you fail.
That is right.
Yeah.
So, but it's more that team approach of now I know in advance you think you're going to fail, not after the fact. So now we have a chance to adjust and respond and get everyone appropriate on board to make the adjustments so that we don't fail. It's a team event.
Win at all costs.
That's right.
I love that. Okay. So tell me, how does that translate into partner relationships? Why is that important in how you build your partner relationships?
I approach partner relationships also as a servant leader. I think we need to be a servant partner, if there is such a term.
Right.
If we make our number one objective what our partners say their number one objective is instead of our own, we're going to help them succeed. And in the long run, we will also succeed. And I think a lot of companies do that in the wrong order. They have their own agenda and they try and force a partner or a client to fit their agenda. And it's backwards. If you serve them, they'll be successful, you'll be successful.
Bring the partner along for the finish.
Yes. And so like when we sign a new partner, it's really important as a part of that process and the onboarding, we're asking them, how are you going to judge success? Vericlave might say, oh, well, if they sell, say 100 units, that was successful. They might judge that as failure. I need to know what they think success is. And if they tell me success is 500 units, then I need to not be happy with 100. I need to help them get to the 500. So it's really important you ask what's their criteria, what's their success, so that you're on the same page.
It sounds like you're highly focused on collaborating with your partners.
Absolutely.
So these partner relationships, you're working to bring cyber defense to your clients with Vericlave. That's your number one mission, is to help your clients be more secure. So tell us about the kind of companies that would benefit from Vericlave's solution.
All of them. No, okay. So seriously, almost all of them. All's a little bit of a stretch, but any company that gives remote access to a vendor or remote access to an employee could benefit from Vericlave.
Because that's the opening. The remote access is where the opening is.
That is a lot of where many of the breaches happen. In our current VPN, IPsec or some others, there's a lot of known vulnerabilities. There's that first public handshake, right? It's like, oh, hey, are you the right person? Oh, we're going to have a public handshake, an exchange of certificate, then I'll set up a secure tunnel. And there's so much evidence where hackers breach that. And even if they don't breach during that public handshake, hackers can very easily scan that network and they can get a hold of traffic going through that tunnel. It's called a man-in-the-middle attack.
Okay.
And there's big things going on right now with IP cameras where you can see what's being shown from the camera. And Vericlave stops all of that. So, for example, the Target attack, very famous attack. Lots of people have heard about that one.
The Target retail store.
The Target retail, when it was hacked, the hack came in through the HVAC vendors' access to the network. And then it was able to kind of worm its way into the Target network. With Vericlave, that wouldn't have happened. The tunnel for that HVAC vendor would have only allowed them to see their own things and nothing else. So that's why I say almost ingest everyone. I mean, again, in today's diverse work world, anyone with remote access
needs a Vericlave, stealth solution. Get your tunnel to be invisible on the internet.
That's right.
And that's what Vericlave does.
Yes.
Fabulous. We need more of that solution for our clients. So recently there's been news about nation-state cyber attacks with Iran and China have been hacking U.S. companies. So how does Vericlave help protect in that area?
Well, I just touched on this a little bit, actually. For example, our government has a mandate that came out in 2019 about protecting devices that have a compromised supply chain, which means some of their components, and typically the chip, were made in China or not in our country at least. And they have these back doors where they call home and they call to a date time stamp server or something else. But what they're really doing is sending the video stream back to other countries. And our country has recognized that as one of the many threats. And we've been able to demonstrate to our own government as they try to replace all the cameras, it is less expensive to put Vericlave in place. So for example, one very specific use case, they needed to replace 12 cameras. You replace those cameras, so you stop what's called exfiltration. Now there's nothing going back to China. But it's still vulnerable to one of those attacks I told you about because a hacker could scan it, find it, hack it. If you leave those cameras in place and just drop in Vericlave, there's no downtime, and it's $20,000 less expensive than replacing the 12 cameras. So that is one instance where it's very economically beneficial as well to use Vericlave to protect the network.
That's a wonderful solution, and you don't have to replace your existing equipment or your existing cameras, but just use a Vericlave to insulate
Yes.
those cameras and make them function in a more secure manner.
Absolutely. And when you go to replace things, there's always downtime. And so we also eliminate all the downtime. So when you start thinking about critical infrastructure, pipelines, they don't want to take equipment offline. You could drop Vericlave in place without taking anything offline and do the same thing
So is that
for other
another
devices.
Value prop for Vericlave is that when you implement the Vericlave solution, could I describe it as a seamless solution with no interruption in service?
Absolutely. We install in a matter of minutes, and you don't have to turn any equipment off for us to come up and running.
Well, that's a winning solution all day long. And I like that. So in your role as Chief Operating Officer, what are the biggest challenges that companies face with regard to finding and retaining the right people?
I think today a lot of companies have made the mistake of embracing technology a little too much, which is ironic coming from someone who has a big tech background. But for compliance reasons and for volume reasons, a lot of companies now rely on applicant tracking systems and things like LinkedIn and other tools like that. And they rely on them a little too heavily. And when you are on the back end of those tools, what happens is if you say get 100 applicants, it's going to narrow down the applicants for you. But it narrows them down by fit, which means you're really getting the applicants who happen to be really good marketing people and they knew to use the right words and the right SEO search terms. But if I'm hiring an engineer, I don't really necessarily care what his marketing skills are. I want to know what his software coding skills are. And I think that's one of the challenges is that we are leaving good talent, untapped talent on the market because we're relying too heavily on technology to screen things for us.
Okay. And so what is your technique on how you ferret out the best talent? What are you looking for?
So I think it's very important that instead of getting ourselves too focused on the cost of sourcing talent and saying, well, if I use all these applicant tools, my source cost goes down, we need to look at the full cost of the process, including, what I call a previously undetected recruiting error, PURE. That full cost, if you get more people, actual humans engaged up front, you will have better throughput and better candidates that will actually reduce your overall cost, both in the retention and recruiting, both. And so that's the approach that we look for is we're going to be a little bit more hands-on. We're going to make sure everyone gets a thank you for applying and not from an Autobot, from a person. It's a small world. That person might not be the right person, but they might know the right person. You lose that in applicant tracking systems. They can't refer or recommend. They're stale. They're cold. So we again bring that servant leadership approach to recruiting to say, if I were the candidate, how would I want to be treated? And that's how we're going to treat all of our candidates.
And that high touch.
That high touch. Yes.
Wonderful. So share a story with us about some of your first forays into technology companies. I understand you co-founded 4 technology companies in your background.
I have. And, I was lucky and smart enough to recognize my luck, if that's a thing. But when I was working for a technology staffing firm, one of my clients recruited me away to go to a startup. And it was a technology company. I was their 6th employee. And they gave me some ownership to come because I was walking away from a pretty successful engagement that I had going on. And we became the 74th fastest growing company in the country when there were more positions than there were people to fill the positions, which is exactly the challenge in the cyber world right now.
Yes.
And we had to have the recruiting in place, but also the retention strategies, the training strategies, so that people would want to stay with us. And we were able to do that. And again, be the 74th fastest growing, and we sold. And then I had the opportunity to have a little bit more ownership and a little bit more ownership and a little bit more ownership each time we exited a business. And the same CEO and I would start something else, and I would have a little bit more and a little bit more. And I kept making that choice to invest some of my own personal wealth into the next endeavor so that I would have more stake in the business. And that worked out really well for me.
Yeah.
And that also gave me the flexibility to run a lot of different departments, which is why I've run so many things, as you mentioned in my introduction.
In hyper growth companies, when
Yes.
there's not enough people for all the jobs, you learn to do a little bit of everything.
That's right. That's right. Which has been, again, beneficial as I've been CEO and COO of different companies. I really understand the depth and breadth of a lot of different departments and what it takes to run them, and that helps in this role.
Yes. Yes. Well, what are, of your many accomplishments, Carolyn, what are you most proud of?
So it's a little twofold. I've had so many individuals who tell me I'm the best boss they've ever had, the best leader they've ever worked for, the most caring boss they've ever had. But for me, the proof of that has been what I'm most proud of. Individuals that I have let go for no fault of their own. Either there was an economic downturn or the business was struggling, because startups struggle, and I've done a lot of startups. And many of those individuals have come back to work for me, either at that same business or in a future business. And to me, that says I do a little bit more right than wrong as a leader, and I'm very proud of that.
Well, that is quite an accomplishment to have people that have left your company want to work for you again.
Yeah.
You're a magnet for top talent.
Yes, I will agree with that, because I have some amazing people who like to work with me.
Well, and that's what makes great companies, is great people. And so as you look into the future, what are some of the things that you're most excited about at Vericlave? What's key on your agenda for the coming year?
Well, this year, exciting is our partner growth. Just towards the end of last year, we started bringing new partners on. We already had a strong partnership with Schneider Electric, but we need additional partners. And we've ramped up the partner program, and we're starting to see the fruits of that. We're seeing partners come on in Latin America, other partners in the United States, and we're going to continue that growth model. But we're also seeing a lot of traction on the government business side. And the government business runs a little differently. The government has its own pace. And so we have to run that line a little differently, but that is also starting to ramp up. There's so much interest, again, because of this mandate, to address items that have a compromised supply chain. And we've been able to demonstrate our success in doing that. So we're ramping that side of the business as well.
Well, I know you'll be extremely successful in that.
Yeah,
So thank you, Carolyn, for joining us today. This has been Carolyn Jenkins, a leading from the front sales strategist with servant leadership that creates winning teams for her company and for her team. And so we just want to thank Carolyn for joining us, and thank you for joining us on the Front Runner, leading from the front with innovative companies. I'm Carol Nichols. See you next time.